Imagine building an empire by teaching women about loyalty, and then the world finds out you were never loyal to your own wife. They called him the relationship guru, the man who understood women better than anyone. But the truth? His marriage tells a very different story. What happens when the man who preaches faithfulness is exposed as the cheater? Derrick Jaxn's downfall is a lesson nobody saw coming. She gave him her love, her loyalty, even her name. In return, he gave her betrayal, heartbreak, and now he wants to take her name too. He told millions of women how men should treat them. But behind closed doors, his own wife was falling apart from the pain he caused. If a career ever felt like it crashed and burned on camera, Derrick Jaxn's would be the example. Back in 2016 to 2017, he was everywhere. Low-budget videos, loud Facebook posts, flashy car clips, and a persona built around dating and attention, especially popular in parts of the Black community. He was making money, pop-up events, coaching sessions, books. But he wasn't telling the whole truth. He'd been married. One day, after years of presenting himself as the perfect example of a loyal man, Derrick Jaxn shocked his audience by introducing his wife, Dana Jackson. Up until that point, many of his followers didn't even know he was married. He had built his brand speaking directly to women, especially Black women, about how they deserved love, honesty, and respect. To many, he was a fresh, trustworthy voice in the messy world of relationship advice. And then, almost casually, he revealed that behind the scenes he had a family, a wife he'd met at Tuskegee University, and 2 children they were raising together. On the surface, Dana fit the picture of the supportive spouse. She appeared quiet, kind, and deeply committed to her husband. While Derrick thrived in the spotlight, she stayed in the background, raising their children and protecting their home. For a while, people admired what looked like a strong foundation, a couple who had come up together and built a life, while Derrick grew into a public figure. But cracks soon began to show. Whispers of infidelity followed him, whispers that turned into full-blown accusations. In the world of gossip blogs and YouTube commentary, rumors can spread quickly. But this wasn't just idle talk. The allegations of cheating gained traction when Tasha K, a well-known content creator who often exposed celebrity scandals, revealed that Derrick had not been faithful. Her claims weren't vague, she shared details that made it hard to ignore. At first, some of Derrick's fans brushed it off. They didn't want to believe that the man who spent years warning women about dishonest partners was guilty of the same behavior. His image had been carefully polished, the relationship guru, the good guy who claimed to understand women in a way most men didn't. The hypocrisy was almost too heavy to process. For a time, things seemed to calm down, as though Derrick and Dana were determined to push forward despite the storm. But the quiet didn't last. More allegations surfaced, and this time, they couldn't be brushed aside. Multiple women came forward with stories, painting a picture of a man who lived a double life, preaching faithfulness in public while pursuing affairs in private. The pressure became too much. The image of a perfect marriage cracked wide open, and the Jacksons' relationship could not withstand the weight of repeated betrayal. The marriage finally collapsed. Divorce became inevitable. What had once seemed like a fairy tale partnership, born on a college campus and built into a family with 2 children, ended in heartbreak and public scandal. Yet the end of the marriage was not the end of the story. If anything, it was the beginning of something even darker, a painful unraveling of lives that had already been shaken. Dana, once private and soft-spoken, began to appear in ways that worried people. Before the divorce was even finalized, her online presence shifted. There were signs of strain, emotional posts, erratic live streams, and content that left viewers confused and concerned. To many watching, it was obvious that she was carrying a heavy burden, though no one could fully understand what was happening behind closed doors. Meanwhile, Derrick carried on as if nothing had happened. He reinvented himself, leaned into the role of a single man, and continued to chase attention. His brand had taken a hit, yes, but he didn't disappear. For him, the divorce seemed like a chapter closed. For Dana, it felt more like her world had been ripped apart. Their divorce was finalized in 2022. By then, people assumed the worst was over. The relationship had ended, the truth about Derrick's behavior had come to light, and both parties could move on in their own ways. But 3 years later, the story resurfaced in an unexpected form. Dana went public again, this time not about cheating, but about the aftermath of the divorce. She revealed that Derrick had been pressuring her to drop his last name. Even though Jaxn wasn't his birth name, but a chosen one, he wanted her to stop using it. To outsiders, it seemed like a simple enough request. The marriage was over, so why keep the name? But for Dana, it wasn't that simple. That last name had become her identity, not just socially, but professionally. She used it on her social media accounts, her events, her promotional material. Her followers recognized her as Dana Jaxn, not by her maiden name. To let go of Jaxn would mean losing the little recognition she still had, especially as she tried to build something new for herself after the collapse of her marriage. Beyond recognition, there were practical concerns. Anyone who has gone through a divorce knows how complicated it is to change a name. It isn't just about reintroducing yourself to people. It means updating bank accounts, IDs, bills, and legal documents. It's time-consuming, costly, and emotionally exhausting. For mothers, there's also the question of sharing the same last name as their children. Many women keep it simply to avoid confusion and maintain unity in the family. So when Derrick demanded that Dana let go of Jaxn, it didn't feel like a simple request. To many observers, it looked like one more attempt to strip her of the little stability she had left. She had already lost her marriage, her financial security, and her sense of peace. Now he wanted her to give up the name that allowed her to work, promote herself, and stay connected to her kids' identity. What makes this even more complicated is the state Dana has been in since the split. Her online posts mix religious language with urgent, almost alarming declarations. Some say she's turned her faith into a form of survival, immersing herself in intense spirituality as a way to cope with heartbreak. Others believe she's gone too far, slipping into a kind of religious mania that makes it clear she's still in pain. This is why the fight over the name matters so much. It isn't just about a word on paper, it's about power, identity, survival, and dignity. Derrick may want distance from the chaos, but Dana is clinging to the little she has left. For her, Jaxn represents not just the past, but also her present ability to stand on her own, however shaky that stand might be. The story of Derrick and Dana Jaxn is no longer just about infidelity or a broken marriage. It's about the long, messy consequences of betrayal, the unraveling of trust, and the struggle to rebuild a life after being left behind. It's about what happens when the image of a man's success comes at the cost of another person's well-being. And it's about a woman still fighting, however imperfectly, to hold on to herself in the aftermath. After the split, Dana started posting strange, worrying things online. Signs of trouble showed up even before the divorce, but they got worse after. Derrick moved on publicly as a single man. The divorce was finalized in 2022, and for 3 years the public assumed their story was over until new claims came out. Now, former fans are accusing Derrick of trying to control Dana long after their marriage ended. She has publicly claimed that he's been pressuring her to stop using the last name, Jaxn. What makes this even more complicated is that Jaxn isn't even Derrick's legal surname. It's a name he chose as part of his brand. Still, Dana continues to use it across her platforms. On Instagram, on event flyers, and in her promotional material, she's Dana Jaxn. Under that name, she sells tickets, hosts events, and runs something she calls a trauma ministry. The situation raises a question that has divided people. Why won't she just drop the name? At first glance, it might seem like the respectful thing to do. The marriage ended, so why hold on to a name tied to a man who publicly betrayed her? But when you look closer, the picture isn't that simple. For Dana, the name Jaxn isn't only a reminder of her past, it's a tool for survival in her present. Names carry power. In the world of public speaking, ministry, and coaching, recognition matters. Dana may not have built the platform Derrick did, but she's still known to people by that last name. If she were to go back to her maiden name, many wouldn't even realize who she was. All the small recognition she has worked to gather in the wake of her divorce would vanish. In practical terms, she would be starting from scratch, trying to reintroduce herself to an audience that already barely knows her story. For someone trying to rebuild a life after scandal, that kind of reset could be devastating. There's also the reality of logistics. Anyone who has ever changed their name after a marriage or divorce knows how exhausting it is. It isn't just about social media handles. It means changing IDs, updating bank accounts, switching names on credit cards, utilities, medical records, and even your children's school paperwork. It's a process that takes time, money, and patience. For a mother of two, who is already under financial and emotional strain, that process can feel overwhelming. And then there's the matter of her children. Many women choose to keep their ex-husband's last name so they share the same surname as their kids. It may sound small, but it makes a difference at the doctor's office, at school events, on travel documents. Having a different last name than your children can cause unnecessary complications and, for some, emotional distance. By continuing as Derrick Jaxn, she stays connected not only to her own identity, but also to her kids. But critics point out another layer: financial stability. Derrick is actively building her brand around the Jaxn name. Her events, her trauma ministry, her courses, they're tied to that recognition. Some argue that by keeping the name, she's benefiting from the very brand her ex-husband built, even as she positions herself against the man behind it. Others say this is survival, plain and simple. After years of sacrifice, betrayal, and public humiliation, why shouldn't she use the name to create something for herself? From Derrick's perspective, however, it's a liability. He is trying to rebuild his own image after years of controversy. Having his ex-wife online, still carrying his name, but often spiraling in ways that attract public concern, reflects poorly on him. To him, it isn't just a name, it's a shadow over his brand. He wants distance from her struggles, her unusual posts, and the chaos that people now associate with the Jaxn household. By pressuring her to drop the name, he's trying to draw a hard line between his life and hers. But that's where the criticism comes in. Fans, or rather, former fans, accuse him of hypocrisy. They see his demand as another attempt to control Derrick. They point out that this is the same man who destroyed her emotionally, the same man who left her to cope with betrayal and financial instability, and now he wants to strip away the little she has left to hold on to. To them, it feels cruel, even narcissistic. This debate touches on something bigger than just one couple's drama. It's about what happens to women after divorce, especially when the breakup is public and messy. A last name isn't just a word on a piece of paper. It's tied to identity, to livelihood, to family. For some women, it's about dignity. For others, it's about not having to constantly explain themselves. And in Derrick's case, it's all of that combined. Her trauma ministry, while unusual to many, is her way of trying to rebuild herself. It's how she makes money, how she finds purpose, and how she copes with her pain. Stripping away the name would strip away the foundation she's using to stay afloat. Of course, the other side of the conversation is that Derrick has a right to want distance. No one wants to be forever tied to someone they divorced, especially if that person's behavior has become erratic. But when you look at the bigger picture, the betrayal, the imbalance of power, the way she has been left to pick up the pieces, it's hard not to see his demand as another wound on someone already struggling. So the question remains, is Derrick clinging to the Jaxn name out of stubbornness, survival, or a mix of both? Maybe it's less about Derrick and more about herself. Maybe it's not about honoring the past, but about creating a future where she can stand on her own, even if the foundation comes from a name that no longer belongs to her marriage. What's clear is that this story isn't just about infidelity anymore. It's about what happens afterward, the messy, human, complicated battles over identity, survival, and the right to define yourself even after someone has broken you. For Derrick, the name Jaxn is more than a title. It's her armor in a fight she never asked for but is determined to survive. There are practical reasons why many women keep a married name even after divorce, and those reasons are often overlooked. For mothers especially, the decision is rarely about clinging to the past or holding on to an ex. It's about the children. When a mother and her kids share the same last name, it provides a sense of unity. At school events, in doctors' offices, or while traveling, having matching names prevents confusion and avoids questions that can sometimes be uncomfortable for both parent and child. Changing a name after divorce is not as easy as it sounds. It involves far more than switching a signature. Every legal document must be updated: driver's licenses, passports, social security records, bank accounts, credit cards, insurance policies, mortgages, leases, even utility bills. Each change comes with its own paperwork, fees, and waiting times. It can take months, sometimes years, to fully transition from one name to another. For a woman already navigating the emotional and financial toll of divorce, this process can feel like climbing a mountain with no clear end. Money is another factor. Each name change costs something: new checks, new ID cards, new legal filings. For women who may already be stretched thin after splitting households or paying legal fees, those costs can add up quickly. It's easy to assume that someone could simply move on by giving up a married name, but in reality, moving on can come with a hefty price tag. Beyond the paperwork and expenses, there's the matter of identity. Some women have spent years, even decades, building careers, reputations, and social networks under their married name. Writers, teachers, business owners, or public figures may find that their name is a brand in itself. To change it suddenly would mean losing recognition they've worked hard to earn. In some cases, keeping the name isn't about holding on to a man. It's about holding on to themselves, to the progress they've made, and to the respect they've built. The speaker in this story even admits that she once kept her ex-husband's last name, even though they had no children together. Why? Because starting over under a different name seemed more disruptive than simply keeping the one she already had. It was practical, less costly, and ultimately less stressful. Her experience reflects what many women quietly decide after divorce. Keeping a name is sometimes the easiest way forward. Of course, not every woman makes the same choice. Some feel that shedding a married name is an important part of reclaiming their independence. For them, the act of changing names symbolizes closure, a fresh start, and a chance to rebuild without the shadow of a failed relationship. But for others, the decision is less symbolic and more pragmatic. This is where the debate often gets misunderstood. Outsiders may assume that keeping a married name means a woman is stuck in the past. In reality, many women are simply making the most practical choice for their children, their careers, and their peace of mind. Divorce is hard enough without adding unnecessary stress. For those women, keeping a name is not about holding on, it's about moving forward with as little disruption as possible. Yet the woman closest to him, his own wife, Dana, was the one who suffered the most. She wasn't always like this. From everything people recall, she used to be stable, grounded, and supportive. But after years of betrayal and public humiliation, she seems broken. I don't want to say she isn't capable of being a parent, but when you look at her behavior now, it's clear she's deeply unwell. It feels like Derrick stripped her down emotionally, left her with very little, and then walked away. That's textbook narcissism. Destroy someone's stability, leave them in pieces, and still present yourself to the world as a model of wisdom. Dana has 2 children to raise, but not much financial support or guidance. She's clinging to faith in a way that looks more like desperation than peace. And that happens when people are crushed. They sometimes throw themselves into religion, not always in healthy ways. What started as seeking comfort in God has turned, in her case, into something extreme, even unsettling. Meanwhile, Derrick is worried about how it looks. His brand isn't what it used to be, and having his ex-wife online unraveling under the same last name hurts his image. That's why people say he's pressuring her to give it up. He doesn't want the world reminded of the chaos he left behind. But for Dana, that name is survival. It's the little she has left. She earns income and books events under Jaxn. Taking it away strips her not just of identity but of livelihood. After losing almost everything else, she refuses to hand that over too. Right now, she's not in the place to start a new relationship. She's wounded, detached, and struggling. What she needs isn't romance, but compassion. She needs support, friendship, and real help to heal. If Derrick truly cared, he wouldn't be fighting her over a name. He'd step up and admit what he did, that while he was preaching loyalty, he was being unfaithful, and that his actions played a role in breaking her down. But instead of accountability, he's distancing himself, chasing new relationships, and leaving Dana behind in pieces. That's the bitter truth. While he tells men how to treat women, his own story reveals how he treated his wife. And until he owns that, no amount of rebranding will hide what really happened.